Oh, here we are for another episode of Free Agent, and today my guest is Dave Morbeck. Dave is president of ComForcare Home Care and vice president of Just Like Home Adult Daycare Center. You're in Jackson, Wisconsin, is that right?
We are, yes.
Got it. All right. Well, Dave, you and I go way back, and I was one of the people who helped you become a free agent.
You did.
So take our audience back and talk about what was the catalyst back then that made you want to take the leap into free agency, business ownership, but talk about too the kind of the mental gyrations that you and your wife Lisa went through as you were evaluating.
Well, I would first tell you that I had no interest in becoming a business owner initially. That was not in my thought process. It was not in my wheelhouse, as you know. I was the director of sales for the Scotts Miracle-Gro company, and I had worked there for 20 years. Loved what I did, loved the company, and really had no plans on leaving. And like life, the way it takes you sometimes, I got a phone call on a Monday morning, and my position was being eliminated. So they, set me up with the outplacement agency to help me, go through the whole process of trying to find a new job. It was in 2011. The economy was not very good. And so I was working really hard to get a job with somebody else. And as a part of that, with the outplacement agency, they had the classes on franchising. So as you know, I was sitting home baking cookies and making apple pies and whatnot and sending out resumes and then waiting for a response and all of that. I thought, okay, I'll go to the class. And lo and behold, that's where you and I met. And the kind of the combination of everything that was occurring kind of led me to, if I'm working that hard to go to work for somebody else, I should just go to work for myself. And, at that time, everybody wanted my experience, but nobody wanted to pay me what I thought I was worth. And I wasn't going to give that away for nothing. I was confident enough in myself that, I felt that I deserved more than that after 20 years. And I thought, if I'm working that hard to go to work for somebody else, I can go work that hard for myself. So, and that's what we did. You set me up, you talked about what do you want to do. Well, talked about franchising. Of course, I knew nothing about franchising. Like most people, your mind gravitates to fast food. And as you begin to explore it and do your due diligence, there's so much more out there. And, that's kind of the path that I went down. As you and I talked about, the criteria for me was, you said you don't, I remember you saying you don't have to be the one to do the business, but you really have to enjoy the business of what you're doing. So what I interpreted that from you was that a good example is painting. I hate painting, and I couldn't imagine owning a painting company just because I didn't enjoy that. And even though I wasn't going to be the one doing the painting per se. So as I began to do my homework and, the criteria of what I wanted to do, for me there was really, I remember there were three things. Number one, I wanted to do something that wasn't a fad. So I didn't want to open Dave's Widgets, which were going to be hot today, and then a year from now, nobody wants to buy one of Dave's Widgets. So that was number one. I wanted to do something that was more rewarding than what I had done in the past. I loved Scotts, but at the end of the day, every retail outlet carries Scotts and Miracle-Gro products. So the challenge was not selling the product. The challenge was how much you were going to sell, which after 20 years was not as rewarding as I wanted out of my career. And then the third thing was I wanted to do something personally where I could help people. And so that's how we ended up in the home care personal services arena. And then, the rest is kind of history. As you know, our aging population and whatnot, home care is here and here to stay.
And another element, when you and I were working together in the beginning, we were looking at opportunities that would satisfy Dave. But going back to my first principles and working with you or anybody is your wife, your life, and your money. We've got to take into account in every conversation, how is this decision going to impact your marriage. And that was really interesting with Lisa. And thank you. You both have served in the military. With the backgrounds that you both share, from that standpoint, surveying the field of battle and looking to see where the opportunities or the threats are, then as you and I moved past the options for you and brought Lisa into the conversation, that's when things really started to magnify and take off.
They did. Lisa was working, she's a medical assistant by trade. She had worked for Aurora Healthcare, one of the largest providers here in Wisconsin. And she had been there at the time 24 years. You know, as they continued to grow, like many corporate America type companies, the personalization was leaving the business from what she had started. And she was ready for a change as well. And it just made sense that, you know, my sales and marketing background, more of the business management end of it, and then her medical experience, knowing what makes a good caregiver, and her desire to want to leave, it all kind of came, you know, full circle and made perfect sense for us to eventually go down this route.
And now here we are in 2020. I didn't realize it had been that long ago, 2011, that you and I met.
8 years.
Time flies. Well, so here we are in the year of a pandemic. And prior to turning on the record button, we were talking about just how challenging this year has been.
Absolutely.
Are there, and talk about that, because that is reality. In the last 7 months, is there any one thing that you have decided to do differently in order to survive and hopefully again at some point thrive? It has been a real challenging year.
Well, it has. You know, going back, we opened ComForcare, and then along that route, we were hearing individuals say, I really don't think I need one-on-one care. I don't want a stranger coming in my home. All caregivers do is steal or lazy. So as you know, we had been looking for property as well as business owners. So we built a new building and opened a separate complementary business. So half of our building is our ComForcare operational offices for home care. And then the other half is our adult day center where individuals come spend time with us. For some, it's a combination of the two. But, you know, so we had two obstacles, I guess, as we talk about COVID to overcome. We had our caregivers going into the home where we had to keep them safe in home in an atmosphere that a lot of times we don't know all of the details, what's going on. We don't know who's coming in and out of people's homes. We don't know if those people are leaving. We don't know what their hygiene practices are. For many of them, they're maybe in apartments, so we don't know who's around them. And, you know, so we had all of those complications with a focus of continuing to serve them if possible, but also as business owners, keeping our employees safe. On the other end, then we had individuals coming into the day center where, you know, again, now we have to make sure that it's a safe environment there. So the whole process, the whole thing has been, you know, very, very complicated. You know, really, I don't mean this the wrong way, but we haven't changed a lot of what we do, the practices that we had. You know, we continue in home, encourage our caregivers to always wear gloves, practice safe hygiene, all of those type of things. Obviously, as COVID erupted, you know, then we needed to make sure that they were wearing masks and that type of thing. And if there were any COVID instances, of course, then, you know, we had PPE that we were issuing them. Knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of in-home instances, so we've been pretty good about that. But it's just continuing to remind them to practice safe hygiene, healthy habits, which, you know, we had tried to do way before COVID, but it just kind of got magnified. And then, of course, in the day center, you know, that there too, every day we sterilize, we wipe down chairs, we wipe down everything. We just an increase on the attendees practicing, again, more hand hygiene after toileting, of course, making sure that they're washing their hands. and common items, dice and cards and those type of things.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we've had to sterilize all of those. The real obstacle in both instances is that we want to keep them social, keep them engaged, keep them physically active, but yet we need to keep them safe. And, how do you do that with this whole COVID thing?
Yeah.
One of the things that I never thought of going into this was that so much of the population that we serve it has hearing difficulties. They have dementia issues. So if you think about just a mask alone, it can be overwhelming because it signifies danger. How does somebody with hearing read lips when you have a
Right.
mask on? And so now you're hearing what, what, repeatedly. So just a lot of complications from this whole thing that, we probably should have known, but they weren't as magnified given the whole scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up lip reading. I was thinking this morning about mask wearing as the weather gets colder and needing to wear glasses or sunglasses and the condensation that builds up. And it made me think about people who lip read because they can't hear. And have you implemented face shields? Or I guess that would be really scary for someone too who's got any sort of mental or emotional compromise.
We've only had a couple instances where we've really done that. The other challenge is, the whole mask thing, when you go into the home of a senior, as you know, it's always warm. So now you have that mask on your face. So we've had a few instances where caregivers just couldn't do that, and they preferred to wear a shield to get a little more airflow. But, again, every situation is different, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's all about keeping them safe. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. So, as we were talking about just how complicated COVID has made business transactions and municipalities saying you can't operate your business where the government says you are essential and you should be operating, but it really comes down to either the government or just personal fear and concern about about contracting this. Going back prior to March, were you and Lisa enjoying any particular freedoms that were offered in owning your own business versus your corporate life? And I know that's like 8 years worth of hard work that you two have been putting into growing your business. But what are some of the freedoms that you enjoyed leaving the corporate world and now owning your own business?
Well, I always joke, and I've said this to you before. I love being a business owner, and I hate being a business owner. The hate part of it is you wear every hat. Not only now as a business owner, now a dual business owner, and now as a dual business owner with a new building that we've built. Every aspect of what goes on in both businesses seems to funnel to my desk or Lisa's desk, and we find ourselves always doing something. The other side of that, though, is, and you hit the nail on the head, is just the freedom of knowing that, I don't have to report to anybody other than myself or to my wife.
Slave driver.
So I report to my wife, right? But no, we don't have to, check in. We set our schedule. We work extremely hard, but knowing that, I think the biggest thing and the most rewarding thing is knowing that as hard as you work, it's all for me and the clients we serve and not for somebody else where, again, I loved Scott's, you mentioned it earlier, we both have military backgrounds, so I didn't need to be babysat. But yet, as hard as I worked, it really didn't matter. You didn't see the end result in a company that big.
Yeah.
And, even though we've grown obviously considerably in 8 years, everything I do today, I can still see the result, tomorrow. So I think that to me is far and away the most rewarding thing is that, yes, I work hard. Yes, I have to put in a lot of hours. Yes, I wear all the hats and do all of those things. But when it's said and done, it's for me, or us, Lisa and I, and we see that end result. I think that's got to be the best part of the whole being a business owner thing.
Yeah, my husband and I talk about how one of his favorite quotes is, "We're working even when we're not working." This right here, connecting with you, doing the franchise placements, that is my happy place, helping people take the leap into something that's freeing and rewarding and inspiring. And then we've got the tall grass business. I'm looking at 230 acres of prairie right now, and the ponds out there. The duck hunters have been out, and our obligation is to maintain this property as a showpiece. And so we're out cutting down trees. I've got my own chainsaws and log splitter, and it's joyful work. We get to be outside, but we're always working. And I was just talking to another member of our First Friday group about how do you, in a time like this, restore yourself? How do you, Dave, re-energize?
Well, I think that's one of the hardest things with the business that we elected to go into, home care side of it, is it is a 24-hour business.
Yeah.
So to some degree, we never feel like we're away from it, but yet we also know how important it is for individuals that, healthcare is not an 8 to 5 arena. So we know that. For me, like Lisa and I have different interests, different hobbies. For me, my yard is my hobby. So on the weekends, people would look at it as, oh, he's out working in his yard and all he does is work. For me, I love getting lost out in my yard, and I could work all day and I know where every weed is, and I know, I'm a perfectionist and my yard has to be perfect. Otherwise I can't sleep at night. So, that's kind of who I am. And, but I also know that when I'm out there, I don't have to answer the phone. I'm not dealing with problems. I can clear my mind. That's what I love to do. That's probably my happy place. Whereas Lisa, she likes to just sit and read a book. That's for her. That's her happy place, which again, is perfectly fine. I think in general, one of the hardest things for us as a couple that we really didn't, again, think about going into this is working together. You're married.
Oh, yeah.
Before you had separate jobs. We left in the morning, we did our job, we came home at night, and we didn't necessarily talk about our jobs with one another. Well, now what do? We get up in the morning, we go to work, we work together, even though our offices are at opposite ends of the building, but we work together. We go home at night, and what do? We talk about work. And that's one of the hardest things, is separating from that as well, is to just turn it off and be away from it. So, so there's challenges, so lots of challenges, but so many rewards. And the other one that I use is, obviously we have not reached the level of the same financial level that we did when we were in a corporate America role. Yeah. We've had a lot of growth along the way, so some of that is strategic, and we know that. But when I go home at the end of the day, I've never felt more rewarded than I do now, as opposed to, what I did before. So, again,
Yeah.
A lot of give and take, but more positives than negatives.
Yeah, a lot of great positive outcomes, and certainly working with your spouse. To your point, Pete and I have the same thing. He works right below me. I can hear his conversations. I try to tell him when I'm doing a recorded event like this so that he can be quiet down there. But I can hear him, he can hear me. And yeah, since COVID started, we have spent all of our time together. Haven't gone out very much. Today is going to be kind of an unusual day. I'm having a real lunch with a real person in Lake Geneva.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to get in my car and go somewhere. And I was thinking about how inconvenient it has been over the last 15 years to leave Chicago, come up to Milwaukee, do events there, get back in the car, or drive over here to Milton. All that time in the car, we've all reclaimed now that we're working from home, or you're not working from home. But it's created some interesting dynamics for couples and for families to be forced to be together for a period of time. How long were you and did you and Lisa actually have to close your center?
We did. We've been open the entire time.
The entire time.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Given the standard, the guidelines, we were deemed imminent because the question was, if those individuals weren't coming here, would they potentially be in danger staying home? The answer was yes.
Yeah.
So we stayed open. Now, despite that, I mean, we averaged on our busiest days 22 to 24 people over there. We dropped to 3 a day. So the financial ramifications, you have this new building, you have a new business, and your revenue goes from 22 people, a day to 3. You can imagine there were a few sleepless nights along that road as well. So that's it. COVID's really hurt that. And that's consistent with the home care as well. There were many people that, although they were having us come into the home to provide housekeeping or meal preparation and those type of things, it wasn't essential, so to speak, in their day-to-day life. So they just canceled services as well, rather than take that risk of having somebody come in. So COVID's, on the financial end, has really complicated it for us as well.
How did you communicate to your staff and your clientele the sanitation or decontamination procedures that you were going to put into place? Or I guess what I really want to know is, how did you build trust so that, because every one of those people are human and we all have a level of fear about contracting this thing, but how did you and Lisa pivot to instill trust so that your employees were comfortable and your clientele would come back?
Well, at the end of the day, I don't know that there was anything that I said that was going to change the scenario. The media just, blowing everything up the way it is, and that's all you hear on the news and the radio and so on and so forth. We just felt that I can't tell you anything that isn't true, but I can communicate with you and just keep you in the loop as far as, okay, here's where we're at today, here's what we're going to do, and if we have any issues, we're going to communicate that to you and make you aware. So if there was anybody that, tested positive, obviously we would let them know, and knock on wood, we haven't had anybody, any of our care staff or anything. So we're really proud of that.
Congratulations.
But, again, it's all about communication. We just tried to be transparent with everything that was going on. We told our caregivers that because of the unfortunate nature of COVID is that we felt they could be experiencing cold-like symptoms before they even knew they had COVID. So we, both caregivers and clients, we said, if you're experiencing any symptoms that potentially, could exploit anybody, please just let us know and we're going to, cancel. So we wouldn't send a caregiver into a home, or we wouldn't go into the home if we knew the client was, potentially sick. So again, there was nothing that we could do. I mean, we, stressed the PPE and all of that and the cleanliness and the hygiene and all that. But really, it was just a matter of communication and just keeping them in the loop on what was going on. Yeah.
Very important changes, pivots have taken place over the last 6 months. Are there any perspectives that you have on your business going forward where you might have done something, you would do over things that now you're looking forward and have a new point of view on how you might pivot your business?
As it relates to COVID, or just the business in general?
Both of your business lines.
Just in general, or as they relate to COVID, though?
Well, I think at some point we're going to come out of COVID, but I'm, for example, talking to a lot of business owners who over the last 6 months have made some important pivots into virtual, which obviously your business can't do that. Some of them have said, just like 9/11 and TSA security checks, that's going to be with us forever. So COVID is going to go away at some point, but this sense of how to adapt your business so that your clients are comfortable, your employees are comfortable, and you're back to a robust business. Are you going to adopt any new revenue streams? Are you going to diversify any further? So it's COVID, but more related to how is your business going to stand the test of time?
Sure. I think, what we do in our business is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's not a lot you can change with that. So a couple things that we try and do to, make those feel at ease as well as differentiate us is that we, stress some of the ComForcare practices, the hiring practices. We don't allow open applications. So everything we do is by appointment, which rules out a lot of individuals that are just out flooding the market with applications to, get their unemployment or whatever. So we try and be pretty strict as strict as you can be in today's, employment arena with our hiring practices, which again, then we translate that to our clients to let them know what's going on. So continue to do those things. One of the things you did touch on, though, which is really very interesting right now, is that whole virtual thing. There's a number of devices out there that, potentially individuals don't need a caregiver coming in the home. They just need to know that somebody needs to know that they are up and moving, that they took their medications, those type of things. So it's something we're exploring, but it's really in the infancy stages right now because there's a lot of complications with how you bill for that. You would then need staff to be your virtual monitors, as opposed to your caregiving staff. So there's some complications there, but we see that as a potential, for possible growth down the line.
Interesting.
But in all honesty, right now with the home care and the day center, we have a lot on our plate, and COVID has just complicated that even more.
Not really looking to diversify and take on more, but you're bringing up something that I hadn't thought of, that I could make an introduction for you to a company that Pete and I are involved with, where they are doing remote monitoring. This is more for HVAC kind of thing, but to be able to save to the cloud the video feed, and like we say, you've got old Fred back at the corporate office and he can monitor 12 different technicians being out.
Right.
One person who's, I'd be happy to make that introduction for you when you're ready, because it's a whole audio, visual, and software platform that could tie into the rest of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, people have asked me, particularly in the home care arena, what do I know today that I didn't know, 8 years ago? And I always say, I didn't know that finding quality employees would be as difficult as it is. We're in a county that's very conservative and low unemployment. So we're all competing for that same pool of good employees. We can get the bad ones all day, which of course, those aren't the ones we want to put in your home. So I didn't know that would be as difficult as it is. But conversely, I didn't know that it would be as difficult to get clients as it is, because again, what we've learned is home care, individuals don't want to pay for home care until it's the immediate last resort and the need really strikes. And that's where some of these other arenas are of interest to me, the virtual. You can monitor up front, where at a lower cost, less invasive to the individual, but again, keep them safe. So that's something that I'm really looking at, but at the time has to be right, and we have to get over this whole COVID thing and all of that right now.
Right. Well, so we're coming up on the end of the show, but what I'd like for you to do is to, again, name of your company and where it is, how to contact you for more information.
Well, my name is Dave Morbeck. We own ComForcare Home Care, and we're in Jackson, Wisconsin. So Jackson is about a half hour north of Milwaukee, a small little community of 6,000. It's rural communities, so the towns are 10 to 15 minutes all around us, but we're in a little community. So you can reach us at our phone number is 262-674-1515. You can also go to our website, which is westbend.comforcare.com. So that's for the home care side. And then the adult day center, just like home adult day center. And you can visit, our number there is 262-423-4411. And our website is www.justlikehomeadultdaycenter, long, lengthy, but just like it sounds, justlikehomeadultdaycenter.com. So, as I said, the beauty of our business as we talk about home care or the day center, everybody knows somebody who could benefit from our service. And I always say, as I'm talking, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, my neighbor, my parishioner at church, my Aunt Sally, everybody knows somebody who could benefit from what we do.
And the high quality that you deliver as well is amazing. I have been out to your building and enjoyed the tour and doing the interview with you a couple of years ago. You have a lovely facility. More importantly, it's run with precision and accuracy, and that's you and Lisa. And I'd put my parents there if they were not in Illinois.
I joke with Lisa. I always say, well, we're not the best, we're not perfect, we're not the best, but there aren't none better.
I absolutely would tell the audience to believe that. So thank you.
I think the biggest thing is, you just strive for perfection. As I told you, continuous improvement beats postponed perfection.
Oh, nice. Say that again.
I like that. Continuous improvement beats postponed perfection. So we can always get better. We can always get better.
Well, thank you again, Dave. It's always great to see you. And I know that at some point our time will be together. We can get together and have lunch or a beverage or something one of these days. As we come into winter, I know you're going to be back in the kitchen cooking and baking too.
I will be.
Off the lawn and into the kitchen. So, all right. Well, we will be in touch. And thank you again for your time today. It's always great to see you.
You too, Meg. Thanks for everything. I appreciate it.